Welcome to another edition of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the quarterbacks. There's a lot of stories involving quarterbacks this offseason that have been around, and I thought no one better would be, able to kind of break down those different situations, those different quarterbacks, than one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion, in the NFL, Mr. Warren Moon. How you doing?
I'm great, Mike. How you doing, man? It's a lot of anticipation getting ready for the season, and I'm sure everybody's excited, and I'm excited as well because I'm as big a fan as anybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. And now, of course, with every show, I do start off with the get off your chest segment before we get into the quarterback talk. But this is episode. I want to say, hey, I really don't have nothing, really to kind of go at or talk about for this one. But it's football season. It's football season. It's football season. NFL is here. Everyone's excited. Everyone's anticipating their team going undefeated and winning everything, even though it's not really the greatest expectation to have. But hey, there are people that have those type of expectations, their team winning the Super Bowl, even though not every team can win the Super Bowl. So, hey, everyone, let's get started on Thursday night. Got the Lions and the Chiefs. It's going to be a great one to get us started. You got anything to add to that, Warren?
Well, I'll be at that game. I'm headed to Kansas City on Wednesday, and it should be an exciting game. I think without Chris Jones being there for Kansas City, that's a big weakness to their defense because he does such a great job against the run, which Detroit runs the ball really well, and he's great against the pass, and especially coming up the middle against Jared Goff, who's a pocket passer. You want to be able to put pressure and not allow him to step up and throw the football from the pocket. So not having Chris Jones there is going to be a big weakness for the Chiefs defense, but they're just going to have to make up for it as they always do with their offense and Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see how it turns out.
Definitely. That's 15 and a half sacks that's missing. So, not only him, but you have Nick Bosa that's probably going to be missing for the 49ers, and you have Brian Burns that missed a couple that's missing practice too, waiting on a new deal. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with those guys and those new deals. But, getting into quarterback talk, of course, I want to talk a couple national quarterbacks before we get to the AFC South quarterbacks. And one veteran quarterback that had people talking this offseason, that would be Mr. Aaron Charles Rodgers. He moves from Green Bay Packers to the New York Football Jets. And, of course, it seemed like his demeanor changed. It seemed like he's a little happier. He's kind of jovial. He's joking with the players, things like that. I mean, what are your expectations for the Jets this year? Now that, of course, last year everyone talked about they need is a quarterback to go with this defense. Now they have the quarterback to go with the defense. What are your expectations for that team?
It's really hard to say because their defense really did play well last year. They were top 5 defense, a lot of young players on that defense. But they didn't play a great schedule last year. This year, they have one of the toughest schedules, especially in the first 6 weeks of the season. So we'll see what that defense is made of early because they open up against Buffalo on Monday Night Football, and they've got a bunch of tough games in there early in the season. But they do have Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, who is a much better than what they had last year with Zach. I can't think of his last
Wilson.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. And so I think it's kind of a trade-off there. So we'll just have to wait and see how quickly they all gel together offensively with Aaron Rodgers as their new quarterback. And then if that defense can play up to the level it did last year against a tougher schedule, and also can they stay healthy the whole season? Last year they stayed healthy the whole year, and that's something that doesn't happen always in the NFL because injuries are part of the game. So it's really hard to predict going into the season how well they're going to do, but on paper, they have a really good defense, and we'll see if they can play up to the level they played at last year.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how things play out. And of course, you got to add in there that Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb came over from the Packers to the Jets, and also you have a wide receiver from the Chiefs came over as well. Nico Hardman, he came over as well. So they've got a plethora of different weapons to go along with Garrett Wilson and those guys, and CJ Uzama as well at tight end. So it's going to be interesting.
And Dalvin Cook as well. So
exactly
up at the running back position. So we'll just have to see how all this goes together because there's a lot of new faces, as you just mentioned, a lot of talented players, but in football, it takes time for all those faces and all those personalities and all those talent levels to come together. So we just have to see how well that all comes together, uh, especially in the course of the early part of the season. You would hope with all these new faces, they get better as the season goes along, but they're going to have to come out of the gate uh, pretty strong because of the schedule that they have those first 5 or 6 weeks of the year.
Definitely. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be something to watch. And of course, whether they do great or do bad, everyone's going to be talking about them. Now, another team that's going to be talked about a lot, and is the team that you mentioned, they're going to be seeing the first games, Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, of course, has Super Bowl dreams and had Super Bowl dreams the last few seasons, although the Kansas City Chiefs have pretty much dashed those the last few years. And this year, of course, they have a little bit more. They have some expectation as well, but it just doesn't seem quite the same amount of buzz, in my opinion. So how concerned are you that with this team in terms of the running game? Because with me, when I watch this team, you see Josh Allen being the runner and also being the quarterback as well. I mean, does that concern you how much he takes off and runs the football?
Well, it concerns me only because of injury. He does put a lot of pressure and a threat to the defense because he's able to do that. And he's hard to defend because all defenses have to worry about that. But you also worry about him taking too much punishment over, say, the last 3 or 4 years since he's been doing that. And you want him to pick his spots a little bit better, and you also want him to be a little more careful when he does run the ball, not trying to take everybody on. It's one thing to scramble and get positive yards and get on the ground or get out of bounds, but you don't need to lower your shoulder and take on linebackers or take on defensive backs. That's what worries me more than the fact that he actually runs. I like the fact that he has that dual threat capability, but he needs to be much smarter when he does run because he is their offense. And they need to be a little bit more balanced with the way they run the football. But they're one of the more talented rosters in this league on both sides of the ball. They have a lot of depth on defense. They have probably 5 or 6 different pass rushers. And then once Von Miller comes back, they're even going to be that much stronger with pass rush. So this is a very good football team that just really didn't play well at the end of the season last year. And hopefully they'll play better this year at the end of the season. I have no problem with them going throughout the regular season. It's how well they're going to perform in the preseason. I mean, in the postseason. That's what everybody's concerned about with the Bills.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I look at as well. And definitely you speak truth in terms of running the football. No problems with him running the football. I definitely meant in terms of him trying to run over people and hurdle people and things like that. I'm like, hey, calm that down.
Yeah, that's a concern. And Lamar Jackson runs the ball a lot too, but he's pretty smart when he runs. He knows when he can take on somebody. He knows how to get out of bounds. He knows how to get on the ground. And he's even been hurt some, but not so much because he's been running. So injuries are part of the game, but if you can make yourself a little bit more careful to where you don't put yourself in harm's way, because the most important thing for a quarterback is to be available every play. And the only way you can be available is to not get yourself hurt.
That's right. That's right. Now, of course, to me, I think the biggest reason they have an issue running the football is their philosophy offensively, because to me, they have linemen and they have pieces there to do so. I just don't think the philosophy that they have in terms of a offense leads to them being a better running offense with the running back and the line that they have. I mean, you can tell me definitely if I'm wrong, but I just kind of see that over the years that they just don't. They're big, but they're just not physical and pushing people off the ball as an offensive line.
Yeah, they're not, and they're geared more towards throwing the football. There's no question about it. But I think they have some running backs. If they were to commit a little bit more to the running game, their offensive line is good enough, and those backs are good enough to maybe not make them as explosive as they've been, but makes them a little bit more physical, and then they can eat more time on the clock. Time of possession is important. It keeps your defense off the field, keeps them fresher when they do go on the field. So, yeah, it's a philosophy that has to be believed in by the head coach and also by their offensive coordinator. And if they get on the same page that way, I think this team, can be a very dangerous team. And I think that's what everybody has looked at over the whole offseason. And I'm sure they've looked at it as a team as well, that we need to run the football a little bit more, eat up a little bit more time of possession, not put Josh Allen in so many situations where he's going to turn the football over like he did last year. And I think they'll be in much better shape towards the end of the season.
All right, all right. Now, we did mention Lamar Jackson earlier, and I do have to talk about him. Of course, he got paid this offseason. They brought in weapons like Odell Beckham Jr. and Zay Flowers. They actually bring in an offensive coordinator to replace Greg Roman, which, in my opinion, I think is a good move for them because it kind of makes their offense a little bit more even as opposed to just a run-centric offense. And Georgia offensive coordinator Todd Monken. And we may see, to me, I think we'll see Louisville Lamar, where he was passing the football and running the football in more of a pro-style offense. But, with that being said, and all the different changes, is there a higher amount of pressure on Lamar this year because all these different changes have been made to kind of suit him and kind of help him in pursuit of winning a championship or being successful as a Baltimore Ravens quarterback?
I don't know if it's pressure on him, but I think there's more expectations for him, that he does now have the weapons that he's been looking for, both in the receiving core and running back. He's got a bunch of those guys back healthy this year, so he doesn't have to put as much of it on his shoulders. And you've got Monken in there as the offensive coordinator who's going to call a more balanced game. So with all of those things changing for the better, there's more expectations that the Ravens should be a much better team. Of course, as soon as Lamar signed the big contract, the pressure comes with that, expectations come with that. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. Again, you have a lot of new faces on this team. You have a new offensive coordinator. So how quickly do those things come together once the season gets going? Because none of those guys played any during the preseason, so they haven't had a lot of work together in a game type situation. So that to me is the biggest key, is how quickly does all these changes come together and they start
gelling.
I guess you would call gelling as a football team. How quickly does that happen?
Right. It's going to be interesting just to see how all those pieces together make things happen. But I will say I'm very, very interested to see how Mr. Zay Flowers does, because boy, oh boy, he was making people look silly during training camp.
He's a big play guy, and they just have to take advantage of that and use him. So I hope they do, because Lamar, he loves to throw the football to Mark Andrews, his tight end. He loves to throw it in the middle of the field, but you got to throw it on the outside sometime and let those little guys, use that speed and make big plays, because it makes the game easier for you when you can get those big chunk plays down the field.
That's right. Now, of course, I wanted to get into some national quarterbacks, but we're going to get into some AFC South quarterbacks and some situations there. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break of Touring the AFC South with their host, Mike Patton.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. And, of course, we have addressed the national talk about different quarterbacks, mainly Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. But we do have to talk about the AFC South and the quarterbacks in the AFC South. And we got to start with probably the best quarterback in the AFC South, in my opinion. That'd be Mr. Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. Definitely ended the season on a hot streak. I mean, he only threw 2 interceptions down the stretch, and I believe he threw almost about, 15 touchdown passes. I could be wrong, but I mean, he replaced Marvin Jones Sr. with Calvin Ridley. So that's a huge upgrade right there. I mean, with that being said, some people are talking about him potentially being a dark horse MVP candidate. Now, is that a little bit too much for him to start this year, or you think that's maybe right on brand?
Well, I think any quarterback that's considered a top 10 quarterback has a chance to be in the MVP consideration. And he's definitely one of the top 10 best, I think, in the league right now. He made that big jump last year. Uh, and I think everybody was expecting that from him anyway, with all the hype that came with him coming out of college. Uh, the comeback victory in the playoffs was a huge feather in his camp after he got off to a really bad start in that game, turning the ball over. I think he threw 3 or 4 interceptions in the first half, but really turned that around, showed a lot about his toughness and his character and all that, the way he came back in that game. So the fact that he finished the season strong last year with a playoff win, played pretty good in Kansas City, even though they lost that game. Now you add a Calvin Ridley to your arsenal. There's a lot of talk that he could be an MVP candidate, and I believe that, especially in the division he's playing. He's not playing in one of the toughest divisions in football right now, with Houston and Indianapolis are probably going to be struggling this year. Tennessee is going to be competitive as always, just because of the nature of their program. But I think with that division and having some of those games he's going to play, he's going to have a chance to have some really big games. So yes, I think Trevor Lawrence could be in MVP contention by the middle of the season. We'll just have to wait and see what kind of start he gets off to. That has a whole lot to do with if you're going to be an MVP or not. You get off to a great start.
Gotcha. Okay. And how potent do you see this offense being? Because I definitely can see them scoring 30 points a game with all the weapons they have.
It has those capabilities. Again, Calvin Ridley, we know his talent, but again, he's new coming into this, so there's going to be an adjustment period. But they do have Kirk on the other side, who's very, very explosive as well. Really good running backs, and a really nice tight end. So they've got the talent that it takes to be explosive. And then you have a quarterback, who can do it all. He can make every throw. He's very agile. He can make guys miss. He can buy time. He can create, and he can throw the ball from a lot of different angles. So he's the real deal. And with all those things combined, there's no reason why they shouldn't be a very potent offensive football team.
All right. Let's move on over from Jacksonville to Tennessee, the team that everyone thinks can compete with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I personally do. But, of course, they do have the oldest quarterback in the division in terms of starting quarterback with Ryan Tannehill. And now, of course, he has a weapon now to throw to, another weapon, I should say, in DeAndre Hopkins. Now, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, now you have him at the 1 wide receiver. You have Treylon Burks when healthy at the number 2 wide receiver. You have Chig Okonkwo at tight end. You have Kyle Phillips when healthy at wide receiver, the slot wide receiver, or Chris Moore at the slot wide receiver, who's former Houston Texan as well. So with those additions and with those different dynamic added of DeAndre Hopkins, do you think the Titans are a little bit more dangerous team offensively now with those weapons?
I think a lot is going to depend on Treylon as far as his health. He's got to stay healthy. Remember, they drafted him last year to kind of take over for Brown, and it just hasn't happened because he wasn't on the field a lot of the time last year. So they're expecting a lot out of him here in his second year. DeAndre Hopkins, he doesn't have the speed and explosiveness he used to, but he's a very consistent receiver. He's not going to drop many balls. He'll be more of a possession type receiver, but they need that home run threat. And that they have to have. Of course, they have Derrick Henry in the backfield. He's always going to be a consistent, and he's always going to be a threat to the defense. But Ryan Tannehill is going to have to really play well this year as well. And he's got, I'm sure, a lot of pressure on him because of how many quarterbacks the team has drafted the last couple of years and drafted high. Those guys are waiting there for their turn. And I'm sure people are waiting to see if Ryan is going to play well or not, and start hearing the whispers of, let's make that change. So hopefully he doesn't let that pressure get to him and just go out and play the game the way he's capable of. But he does have a lot of new faces on that offense too, so we'll just have to wait and see how all that comes together.
Definitely. And speaking of new faces and pressure with the backup quarterbacks, Malik Willis and Will Levis had a little bit of a competition. It seemed like to me that in watching it and seeing it, that Malik Willis from year one to year two took that a little bit of a jump. And it looked like to me that Will Levis is still trying to get there. Of course, he was injured the last two preseason games. So, in my opinion, I think that Malik Willis is the backup quarterback. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but say if Ryan Tannehill does not come back here next year, it's going to be a competition between those two. And I think Malik Willis actually has a shot to win that competition.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's got a year up in the system, and that's going to help any young quarterback, especially when you go from year one to year two. That's when you usually see a big jump between young guys because now they've figured it all out. They've gone through the system, they've learned it, they know what it takes to be a professional. If they've learned from a veteran, and they had Ryan Tannehill to learn from as far as how to prepare, how to get ready for different teams, game plan, and all those different things. And then he got a chance to play some Malik did last year, 2 or 3 games. I don't know what it was, but he didn't play that well, but at least he got a chance to experience it and see exactly what it takes to be successful in this league. And Will Levis has not done any of that, so he's behind the 8 ball a little bit. So, yeah, Malik should be the guy right now as the backup just because of his little bit of experience and he's been through the system. But we'll just have to wait and see what how the season goes along. I'm hoping Ryan comes out and has one of his best years just because that's what people are expecting out of him. That's what people want out of him. And if he can have a decent year, he doesn't have to play MVP football or anything like that. But if he can have a decent year, take care of the football to go along with the running game that they have with Derrick Henry, to go along with the defense that Mike Vrabel is going to put on the field, this team has a chance to be very competitive in that division.
Definitely. And of course, I do have to talk about the Texans and the Colts. We did talk about the Texans and the Colts in terms of teams that are kind of, trying to find themselves, especially with their quarterbacks. We're going to start with the Texans. C.J. Stroud is starting for the Texans. They kind of tried to bring in a mix of rookies and veterans. They brought in Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys at tight end. They brought in Robert Woods from the Titans to the Texans at wide receiver. And then they have Tank Dell and John Mechie III at wide receiver. So that kind of mixture there. And then they brought in a ton of offensive linemen. They signed Laremy Tunsil and their other tackle to extensions. They traded for a guy from the Cardinals and from the Pittsburgh Steelers, drafted a center. So they're really trying to bolster that offensive line. So how do you kind of feel they've done in trying to surround him or trying to put that effort in to surround him with pieces that can help him develop?
Well, that's what you have to do when you have a young quarterback. You can't expect him to come in here and put the team on his shoulders and carry it. You got to put pieces around him that take the pressure off of him so he only has to do a certain role and he doesn't feel like he has the weight of the whole organization on his shoulders. And I think that's what the Texans are trying to do by, first of all, protecting him, getting an offensive line around him that's going to keep him protected, bringing in some wide receivers to give him some guys that have some big threat capabilities, and then being able to run the football. That's going to be huge for him if they can run it and he doesn't have to throw it every down. There's going to be a lot of games they're going to be behind and he's going to have to throw it, but if they can keep the game close with running the ball, and then their head coach is defensive minded, so I think their defense will be much better this year than they've been in the past. If they can keep games close and be able to run the football, that takes a lot of pressure off of C.J. Stroud, and all he has to do is manage the football game early as he gets more confidence as the season goes along.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting there. Now, as far as Anthony Richardson, of course, he has guys around him. Jelani Woods is on short-term IR, hamstring issue. You do have at wide receiver, though, Alec Pierce. You do have Michael Pittman Jr., and you do have rookie Josh Downs. But one person he doesn't have is Jonathan Taylor right now. He's on the PUP list. And to be honest, I was looking at this thinking that Jonathan Taylor, would be the guy that would help ease him into being the quarterback of this team. Now with him not there, it's going to be interesting just to see. So how do you kind of think this kind of downs his effectiveness potentially early with kind of not necessarily a non-existent running game, but just not as strong a one with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I really don't like the fact that Jonathan Taylor's not going to be available the first 4 weeks, and maybe not at all. Who knows? He might get traded before the trade deadline because there's so much turmoil between the organization and himself over the contract. For a young guy, again, just what I talked about with CJ, you need to surround him with talent, surround him with pieces that don't put everything on his shoulders. And Jonathan Taylor would be the perfect guy to have in that backfield that you could give him the ball, 20, 25 times a game, and he's going to be productive for you. And it just takes so much pressure off of a young quarterback. Without having him there, they don't have a running back of that caliber behind him. And so that means that's going to put more pressure on Anthony Richardson to have to either run the football more himself or throw the ball in a lot of third down situations, third and longs. And that's what you don't want a young quarterback to be in that situation. So I wish something could be worked out with Jonathan Taylor, which would help Anthony Richardson. The thing that's going to help Anthony is that he has the ability to use the ball as well. So he can take some of that pressure off of being a passer early and being a very effective passer early by being able to run the ball with his legs. We saw him do some of that in the preseason. But, again, you don't want to get him banged up and take too much punishment either, trying to run the football too much. So Jonathan Taylor would be a huge addition for Anthony Richardson for his development going forward.
Right. And he did mention how much do you think that Richardson is going to kind of supplement that running game with his ability?
He can definitely supplement the running game. He's going to be a threat every time he sticks that ball into whatever running back is and then pulls it out because we saw what type of athletic ability he has. He's a 4.3, 4.4 guy. He weighs about 235 pounds, so he's a big guy as well. And he knows how to run the football when he does put it under his arm and go with it. So he's going to be a threat, and every defense is going to have to look at him as a threat. But again, you don't want to run him too much because you don't want to get him banged up. And if you don't have that threat that you're putting the ball in to fake to, like a Jonathan Taylor, the defense is going to key more on the quarterback. So I just hope that they can work something out with Jonathan Taylor as the season goes along, and he ends up being there and being with Anthony Richardson for a number of years.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that works out and how Anthony Richardson does and how they make things work. Last question I got for you before we go to the commercial break in the game. Would you start most of these? What's your preference on starting rookie quarterbacks? Do you feel like they should start immediately, or do you feel like they should kind of sit, learn, and then step into the role?
Yeah, I don't like playing a guy early unless you have a really strong team around him. So you look at, say, Ben Roethlisberger when he came into the league. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had the bust there. They had a great defense. So now you have something that you can rely on. And he didn't even start till, I think, the 8th game of the season or something like that. But if you look at all the quarterbacks that have been successful in this league, not all of them, but most of them, they got a chance to sit back and learn and watch for at least a season. You look at Patrick Mahomes. He watched that whole first year except for the last game of the year, came back the next year, and he was ready to go. I can go on and on over young guys who had a chance. Look at Aaron Rodgers. He sat 3 years behind Brett Favre before he got on the field. But once he got on the field, he was rolling. So you look at a Josh Allen. He comes in the league and plays as a rookie. He struggled his first couple of years. So I can see guys who struggled because they didn't have it. They either weren't ready to play or they didn't have the supporting cast around them. I think if you can bring in a guy and give him a chance to watch and learn and look at a veteran play in front of him and then give him the reins, I think that's where you're going to have the most success. Although you can use examples like Dan Marino. He came in as a rookie and set the world on fire right away. But then you can look at John Elway. He really struggled his first couple of years. So it just depends.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, come back, and we got the game for you, Warren.
All right. I'm waiting.
All right.
You ever missed your mom's home-cooked meals? Well, you're not always able to get to those, but you are able to get to H&T's home cooking. Established in 2005, Patty Palin and her staff go out 6 days a week, create some of the best homestyle meals you can taste, and at a fair price. So if you're in Nashville and you like chicken and dressings, green beans, macaroni and cheese, and other things, stop by H&T's Home Cooking. Their address is 2264 Murfreesboro Pike, Nashville, Tennessee 37217. And they are open Monday through Thursday and Sunday 11 to 6:30, and Friday 11 to 7. And if you want to order online, of course, the option is available as well at hthomecooking.com, or you can call 615-367-0049. H&T's Home Cooking, food for your soul.
All right, and we are back on Tour the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. And as I promised, there is a game. We got 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Mr. Warren Moon, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to go music to start off. You know, we 2 of the bands that I personally, or 2 groups that I personally love, that your music is timeless. That'd be Earth, Wind, and Fire or the Isley Brothers. You got to pick one catalog. Which one you going with?
One catalog? One
Yep,
group?
one catalog of music. You got, and the other one goes away.
Wow. I'm going Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay, yeah, definitely. You know, of course, I had to say them because you know their song September, you know, is famous this month.
Well, I love the fact that they have up-tempo music and they have some really nice slow jams as well, where Isley Brothers are more of a swooner type of music, you know, one type of music. They don't have as many of the up-tempo jams as Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Gotcha. Okay, now we're gonna go quarterbacks. Which quarterback are you taking, Josh Allen or Justin Herbert?
I'm going to go with Justin Herbert right now. I just think his upside is a little bit higher. Josh Allen has really played well the last few years, but I think Justin Herbert is ready to take off.
Okay, all right. We got to go with 2 artists, Prince or Michael Jackson. Which
Wow,
one are you listening to the most?
That's a tough one. I had a chance to meet both of them, and I got to go with MJ, Michael Jackson.
All right. Now, Daniel Jones or Tua, which one do you have more questions about going into this year?
I have more questions about Daniel Jones. Tua, my biggest question is injuries, staying healthy. But Daniel Jones, there's still a lot of things I think he needs to improve on, especially as a passer.
Okay, all right. And the last one, Tom Brady or Joe Montana? Which quarterback you taking?
Man, on the final drive, I'm going with Joe Montana. Joe Montana won 4 Super Bowls, never lost one, never threw an interception or turned the ball over in the Super Bowl. That's pretty impressive to me. Tom was in more of them, no question about it, but he did lose 3. So Joe Montana is the man.
All right, that's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You're off the hot seat. That is the end of the show. I want to thank you, Warren, for coming on. If you want to tell everyone where they can find you on social media and also what all things you have going on as well.
Well, I'm on Twitter at WMoon1, and you can find me there. And what do I have going on right now? Golly. I just got done doing my golf tournament for my foundation called Brothers in Arms. It's a foundation myself, Andre Ware, and Vince Young. We all come from single mom homes. We all were involved in sports, and we all have a Houston connection. And we have a foundation now that gives scholarships to kids that come from single mom homes and are involved in sports and have the desire to go to college, and we give scholarships. So we just had our big fundraiser for the year about a month ago, and that's what we spend most of our time, most of the year, is raising money for those scholarships.
Awesome. That is absolutely awesome, Warren. And thank you for doing that. That's a great service to community and just great service in general. And I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. You can find me on Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_NP. And Touring the AFC South, you can find it on YouTube, Hello, everyone. And you can also find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you like to listen to your podcast. We're there. That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.